Hey everyone, it's Mafalda and these are my November and December favorites. So I haven't done a favorites video since October and it's finally time to wrap up the year of 2020 with my last favorites video of the year. And like in my other favorites videos, I have music to talk about, I have movies, I have books obviously, and I also have some other favorites that I will include at the end. So first let's start with music favorites since I only have one to talk about and I actually have it physically with me, and it's Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus. This is her 7th studio album if I'm not mistaken, and I was actually so scared to listen to this album and for this album to come out. It came out in late November I think, and I was super scared. I was just like super scared of not liking it because I was creating all of this hype, like everyone was creating all of this hype for the album, especially after Midnight Sky and Prisoner. And yeah, the singles were great, but I was still scared that the overall album wasn't going to be that good. But I was so happy when I finally listened to it, and it's one of the best albums of 2020 in my opinion, obviously. I really wasn't expecting to like all of the songs, but honestly, I really do like all of the songs. Maybe my least favorites are High and Golden G-String, but other than that, I could listen to any of the other songs. They're all beautiful, they're all amazing. It's just a great album. It has some great songs. Some songs really remind me of like old, like really early Miley Cyrus, like breakout Miley Cyrus, especially What the Fuck Do I Know, which is the first song. I love her and I'm so glad that I like this album. My favorites are definitely What the Fuck Do I Know, Plastic Hearts, that is like my all-time favorite. Then also Hate Me, Bad Karma, Never Be Me. Honestly, I could name every single one. It's just so good, and I kind of wish that Corona wasn't happening so I could see her live. And yeah, it's such a bummer, but I'm hoping that when all of this is kind of over, like she can give some concerts and I can finally listen to this live, because this would sound amazing on a live concert. So yeah, that is my first and only favorite for November and December. There are some songs that I can mention, but like this is like the most prominent thing that was my favorite throughout these months. So yeah, now I have 3 movie favorites that I wanted to talk about. The first one being David Attenborough's new documentary, which is called A Life on Our Planet. This one came out last year, and it's basically a documentary about living on our planet, and we kind of see the deterioration of our planet through his eyes and through his shows, and it's such an interesting documentary. I recommend everyone to watch it because I think it brings up a lot of great points about how we're living on our planet and how we're treating our planet, because yeah, we're basically killing off the planet. Also, the documentary is super short, so I recommend it. If you have an hour and a half to spare, please watch this documentary because it is super informative and super important, and it also has some beautiful shots of our planet, which just makes me really sad that we're treating it the way that we are, and we're basically killing our beautiful planet. But yeah, moving on. The next favorite that I have to talk about, it's also on Netflix if you want to check it out, and it's Hassan Minhaj, Homecoming King. It's basically a recording of a live performance of Hassan Minhaj, and it was so great. It was actually one of the first stand-up comedies that I watched on Netflix. They have a bunch of them, but I never really got around to watching any of them. But I watched that one and it was so great. I didn't even know Hassan Minhaj, but I'm really glad that I watched this performance. His performance was super engaging. He's super funny. Also, the production of the show was really well done because it had like a background that was like showing pictures and everything. And also he's really funny, and he makes a lot of jokes about his life and his upbringing in the US, being a child of immigrants and all, but he also brings up a lot of very hard topics, and that's the balance I really liked in his show, because he would like make you laugh and then 2 seconds later you would almost be crying by the stuff he was saying. And what I also really liked is that it was obviously a comedy show, but he had a narrative all throughout the show. That's why it's called Homecoming King. He talks a lot about his childhood and his high school experience and his experience with girls growing up. I like that it had a clear narrative all throughout and it wasn't just him like telling jokes like one after the other. They clearly flow through each other, so yeah, I really liked it. I highly recommend that you watch it, and it's also on Netflix. And the last movie favorite that I have to talk about is Misery, which is the adaptation of the Stephen King book. I read the book in October, so I watched the movie in like early November, and it's such a good adaptation. I was so surprised. Kathy Bates was the perfect person to play Annie. She plays it so well. It was super terrifying, and the movie is honestly a very good adaptation of the book, especially because the book is very big and there obviously wasn't time to put in all the details, but I think they got the main point of the book and they put like the crucial aspects of the book in the movie. What I really didn't like, but I also get why they put it in the movie, was the sheriff narrative of like him trying to know what happened to the author. And yeah, that obviously isn't in the book because the book is all told through Paul Sheldon's perspective, but I kind of get that it made the movie a bit more interesting, so yeah, I get why they did that. And now moving on to my favorite books of November and December. I did read some great books in the last few months of the year, and some actually I've already talked about in my favorites of 2020 list. For example, In Order to Live and Caucasia I read during those months, but since I already talked about in that video, I'm only going to mention the books that I didn't get to talk about on my channel for some reason. So I have 6 books to talk about, and one of them I didn't really read, but I will explain in a second why it's a favorite. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jargadar. I actually vlogged my experience of reading this book, and I've already talked about all of my thoughts on that vlog. It's my Portuguese vlog. I will link it up here. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. This was just the cutesy read that I was needing in December, and I read it super fast. I thought it talked about such important topics that I don't see a lot in books. For example, cultural appropriation. It's one of the main themes in this book, and I think it brought it up so nicely, and it was so cute and so important, and it had great representation, and I just absolutely loved this book. It almost made it into my favorites of 2020 list, but I don't know. I had read it so recently that I didn't know if it was a favorite or not. I had to sit with it a bit more, but I can definitely say now that it was one of my favorite books of last year. It was really great, and I'm really looking forward to Adiba Jargadar's next book, which is coming out this year, and I'm so excited. The next book that I have to talk about is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. This is a memoir about Trevor Noah's life growing up as a biracial boy in South Africa during apartheid, where being biracial was basically a crime, like the title says. And it was such an interesting read, especially because I didn't really know that much about South Africa and about apartheid and everything dealing with that, and I just learned so much with this book. Also, it was super funny because obviously Trevor Noah is a comedian, and I just really enjoyed my experience of reading this book and all that I took from it. The only downfall of this book is that I was kind of hoping that this would be a memoir of his whole life up until like the point that he wrote this book, but actually it's only about his childhood and like growing up in South Africa. I was expecting a little bit more in terms of like context in his life and how he got to the US and everything, but I didn't get that. But I still really enjoyed this book, and I think it's such an interesting read. If you don't know much about South Africa, I really recommend you reading this, and I gave this book 4 stars. Then the next book I don't have physically with me, but it was The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. And this book is set in Afghanistan, and it follows 2 boys, Amir, who is the son of a very wealthy man, and Hassan, who is the son of the servant of the house, and it's about their friendship and them growing up but then growing apart, and about like differences in their countries, and just it deals with so much. This book is very heavy, so I really recommend that you check all the trigger warnings that I will put in the description. But it was such a beautiful story, and it dealt with so much. I love seeing their friendship grow. I love how the story progressed, even though I kind of predicted what was going to happen. But still, it was such a beautiful story. I love that it is set in Afghanistan because I've never read a book set in that country. It was super emotional, but also really important, and it dealt with a lot. So yeah, it was super great, and I really get why people love this book because it has such a high rating on Goodreads. It has like a 4.5 or something. So yeah, I did give it 4.5 stars because like I said before, I kind of predicted what was going to happen, like the big twist of the book I kind of predicted, but it was still super great. And yeah. The next book that I have to talk about is one that I'm really sad that I didn't get to include it in my favorites video of 2020 because I read it so late. I should have read it sooner, but it's A Curse of Roses by Diana Pingisha. I currently don't have the book because I lent it to a friend, but I have the dust jacket with me. This was almost the last book that I read in 2020, and I'm so glad that I ended the year on this note because this book was so good. It made me cry, it made me laugh, and it was super great. And this book follows Princess Isabel, who is cursed, and every time she touches food, that food turns into flowers, and her country is starving and she's starving as well, and she really wants to somehow reverse that curse, and the only person who can help her is an enchanted Mora called Fatian, and Fatian is also trapped by magical binds herself, and the only way that she can be set free is with a kiss. And it's a beautiful love story between these two characters. It is set in Portugal, it is written by a Portuguese author, and it is based in Portuguese myth, and that's why I had such a big connection to the book, because obviously it is based in my country and it is by a Portuguese author and everything, so obviously I could relate to it a lot. But also the writing is beautiful. I love how the story is interwoven with very important topics like religion and sin and arranged marriages and love between two women in the 17th century. I love how all of that is portrayed, and yeah, it was a really special read for me. This was such an inspiring story, especially because I related to the main characters a lot and their struggles, and yeah, it's so beautifully crafted. I highly recommend this book to anyone, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I have to talk about is There by Tommy Orange. I actually read this book for university because I had to do a paper on it. This book follows a very wide variety of Native American characters that live in Oakland in the US, and it follows all of their lives as they struggle with their identity as Native Americans and as they prepare for the big Oakland powwow that is happening in a few weeks. And it was such an interesting story. I think it was unfortunately my first ever book that I've read by a Native American author and also about Native American people, and I thought it was super interesting. I learned so much, and also doing a paper on this book for university was super interesting, and I really enjoyed my experience with it. And I really wanted to mention this book because I see a lot of people that want to, in 2021, read more Native American authors and Native American stories, and this is a great example for you to start with. I obviously am not the expert of Native American authors because I think I've only read this one as well, but it was a really great story. I loved everything about it. I love that it taught me so much about Native American people, especially in the US, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I have to talk about was actually one of my boyfriend's Christmas presents this year, and I wanted to mention it just because it's so beautiful, and I'm so happy that I have it in my collection. And it's this Wizard of Oz special edition. I think it's the Barnes & Noble special edition. It has the first 5 novels of the Wizard of Oz series, because if you don't know, this is a series and it has a bunch of books. I've only read the first one, but it is one of my favorite books ever, so I'm really excited to continue with these books. And this is just such a beautiful edition of the book. I'm so in love with it. I really want to display it on my bookshelves because I think it really deserves it, but I still don't have like the ideal place to put it. I just wanted to mention because it's so beautiful, and it was one of my Christmas presents from 2020. And now moving on to other favorites, which are basically all clothing favorites. The first one is actually the one that I'm wearing right now, and it's this beautiful lavender jacket that I got secondhand because I think I've mentioned this before on my channel, but I don't buy new clothes anymore. I just buy secondhand clothes, and it's now even easier for me to do that because I work in a secondhand online shop, so I see all of the clothes that they have, and I saw this jacket and it was just so perfect for me. I've been really into like pinks and purples. I think it's such a pretty color and it's in such good condition, so I really couldn't pass it up. And yeah, it's super comfy as well, so I really like it. The other item that I had to show you is also this shirt that I also got in my the place that I work. I saw it there and I was just like completely in love love with it. And I actually used this shirt for my announcement video that I posted last month, and I just absolutely love it. It's basically like a normal floral short sleeve shirt to wear in the summer, which I'm really excited to wear in the summer when it gets here. And I love the detail of this color that has polka dots. And also, if you look closely at the pattern of the shirt, it has tigers, which I think it's a great addition to the shirt. I feel like it's an Easter egg that you don't really see it at first, and then you're like, oh my god, tigers. I love that. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm absolutely in love with this shirt, but obviously right now I can't really wear it because it's not the appropriate weather for it, so I am so excited to wear it in the summer. It looks super cute, and it's also super comfortable and in great condition, especially for secondhand. And now for the last favorite that I have to talk about. It's also a clothing favorite, and it's also a Christmas present, and it was this sweatshirt. It's a plain black sweatshirt, and it says, "Be cool, read a book." Obviously, when my sister saw this sweatshirt, she knew it was perfect for me and my channel because she knows about my booktube channel and everything, and it's just like super cute, it's super comfortable, it's super flattering as well, and I just absolutely love it. This is from a Portuguese brand that is called Maga Paper. They have a bunch of stuff like stationery and clothing and book journals and everything, and it's super great. So that is my last favorite of 2020. Thank you to my sister who got this for me. It's perfect for me and my channel, and I love it. I love it so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't. Also, I will try to do monthly favorites from now on. I did like combined month favorites, and I really don't like to do that, so I will try to start doing monthly favorites from now on. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!